Ancient humans hunted mammoths. They hunted bison the size of a small car. But wolves, bears, big cats, for the most part, ancient humans looked at predator meat and collectively said absolutely not. And it's not because they were scared. Well, not only because they were scared, there's actual biology behind this, and some of it is genuinely disgusting. And before you assume this was just about fear or difficulty, nope. There's real ecological math behind this, a genuinely horrifying parasite fact I need you to be prepared for, and a modern medical discovery that proves ancient instincts were onto something. Let's actually break down why predator meat was basically off the menu. Quick thing before we dive in. If you're new here, we cover ancient history and human origins like this every week. Real research, zero boring textbook energy. Hit follow now so you don't miss the next one. So here's the first reason. And it's honestly just basic ecological math that ancient humans would have picked up on through pure trial and error, generation after generation. Energy moves up something scientists call a trophic pyramid. Plants capture energy from the sun, herbivores eat a ton of plants to survive, and predators eat a bunch of herbivores to survive. At each step up that pyramid, you lose a huge amount of usable energy. Roughly speaking, only about 10% of the energy at one level makes it to the next level up. What that means in practical terms is genuinely simple. There are always way fewer predators in any given ecosystem than there are herbivores because the ecosystem physically can't support very many of them. A single environment might support thousands of deer, but only a small handful of wolves. So if you're an ancient hunter deciding where to spend your limited time and energy, hunting a deer is a much safer economic bet than hunting a wolf. Deer are abundant, predictable, and you can find another one relatively easily if you fail. Wolves are rare, unpredictable, and hunting one down successfully doesn't guarantee there's another nearby anytime soon. On top of that, predator meat itself tends to just be a worse product, leaner, tougher, and stringier than the meat from herbivores, because predators are built for constant activity and hunting rather than storing fat efficiently. So even if you DID successfully take one down, you'd be risking a genuinely dangerous fight for a smaller, tougher, less satisfying meal. From a pure cost-benefit standpoint, predator meat was almost never the smart move. Okay, so the economics didn't favor it. But even on the rare occasions predator meat was on the table, there was a much more disgusting reason to think twice. And I need you to brace yourself, because this parasite fact is genuinely nightmare fuel. So here's the actual biological reason predator meat is so consistently dangerous. There's a parasite called Trichinella, the same family of parasite behind a disease called trichinosis, and it disproportionately shows up in the meat of carnivores and omnivores rather than pure herbivores. The reason comes back to that same trophic pyramid from earlier. Parasites, just like toxins and energy, tend to accumulate and concentrate as you move up the food chain. A predator that's been eating other animals its whole life has had way more opportunities to pick up parasites than an animal that's just been eating plants. And here's the detail that genuinely disturbed me when I found it. There's a specific strain of this parasite called Trichinella nativa, found in Arctic carnivores like bears, that is absurdly resilient. Researchers actually tested this directly. They took infected polar bear meat, froze it at negative 18 degrees Celsius, genuinely deep freezer territory, and left it there for 6 years. The parasites were still alive and viable. 6 years in a freezer. This particular strain evolved specifically to survive freezing, because its whole survival strategy depends on sitting dormant in a frozen carcass until another predator or scavenger eventually eats it and continues the cycle. So think about what that means for an ancient human without modern medicine, without anti-parasitic drugs, and definitely without a food safety inspector checking their kill. Eating undercooked predator meat wasn't just an unpleasant gamble. It was a genuinely serious, potentially long-term health risk, and ancient humans almost certainly learned this the hard way, repeatedly across countless generations, until avoiding predator meat became deeply embedded cultural common sense. So parasites are bad enough. But there's actually a third reason predator meat was risky, And modern science has genuinely proven ancient instincts were right about this too, using something you'd never expect: blood tests from people living today. So, this next issue is called bioaccumulation, and it's honestly one of the most quietly terrifying concepts in all of ecology. Environmental toxins, heavy metals, industrial pollutants, and various other contaminants don't just disappear once an animal eats something contaminated. They get stored in fat, tissue, and organs, and they build up over an animal's entire lifetime. And just like energy and parasites, this concentration effect gets dramatically worse as you move up the food chain, because a predator isn't just absorbing toxins directly from its environment, it's absorbing the already concentrated toxin load from every single prey animal it's ever eaten, stacked on top of each other. This makes apex predators, ecologically speaking, basically walking toxin sponges. And here's the part that proves this isn't just an ancient problem. A modern study actually found that Greenland Inuit populations, who still traditionally eat polar bear and seal blubber as part of their diet, have measurably elevated levels of toxic industrial chemicals, sometimes nicknamed forever chemicals, in their bloodstream, directly linked to their traditional diet of apex predator meat and fat. This is happening in modern times, with modern industrial pollution as the toxin source, meaning even without ancient humans understanding the specific chemistry, their instinct to generally avoid predator meat when better options were available was, in hindsight, a genuinely smart, protective pattern. So if predator meat is this consistently risky, why does that Greenland Inuit example even exist in the first place? Turns out, there's a genuinely important exception to this whole pattern, and it comes down to one simple factor: having literally no other choice. So, in most environments, ancient humans had genuinely better options than predator meat readily available. Herbivores were more abundant, safer to hunt, and nutritionally superior. But in extreme environments like the Arctic, where plant life is almost non-existent and herbivore options are genuinely limited, that calculation changes completely. Populations like the Inuit historically relied heavily on marine predators, seals, walrus, and yes, occasionally polar bear, not because it was the safer or tastier choice, but because it was frequently the only realistic choice available in an environment that harsh. And this actually strengthens the whole pattern rather than breaking it. These communities developed genuinely sophisticated cultural knowledge specifically to manage the real risks involved, things like specific preparation methods, understanding which parts of an animal to avoid, and passing down detailed practical knowledge about handling predator meat safely across generations. It wasn't reckless. It was calculated necessity backed by real accumulated expertise in an environment that simply didn't offer safer alternatives. So the broader pattern holds up remarkably well. Across most of human history, in most environments, ancient humans overwhelmingly avoided predator meat whenever better options existed, for reasons that map almost perfectly onto modern ecological and medical science, even though they had zero understanding of trophic pyramids, parasitic nematodes, or industrial bioaccumulation. They just knew, through generations of hard-won experience, that eating the thing that eats other things was usually a genuinely bad idea. So here's the actual takeaway. Ancient humans avoiding predator meat wasn't superstition, and it wasn't pure fear either. It was a genuinely smart, repeatedly reinforced survival pattern, built on real ecological inefficiency, real parasite risk, and real toxin accumulation, all learned the hard way over countless generations, long before anyone had the scientific vocabulary to explain exactly why. And where the pattern did break, in places like the Arctic, it broke because necessity demanded it, backed by genuinely sophisticated risk management knowledge, not recklessness. It's honestly one of the clearest examples of ancient humans arriving at scientifically sound conclusions through pure accumulated experience, centuries before anyone could explain the actual biology behind it. If nobody taught you the actual science behind this in school, follow. We cover ancient history and human origins like this every single week. Comment if that 6-year frozen parasite fact ruined your day as much as it ruined mine, because I genuinely have not recovered. And if you want more of this same ancient instincts were smarter than you'd think energy, Check out the video on what ancient humans did when they got sick, linked right here. Completely different topic, same kind of surprising deep dive.